Sacramento Kings head coach Doug Christie is not afraid to bench a starter, even if that starter makes $47 million.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320, the Kings Beat, and of course, the new host of Locked On Kings. Been a credentialed media member for the last 16 years covering the Sacramento Kings. I think my win-loss record is probably about 240 games under 500. It's not very good. Let's get into a couple of things. Number one, this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. We got a couple of things to talk about tonight. First up, we're going to use 6 quick thoughts. We're going to throw those into the last segment of the show and see how they go. 6 quick thoughts is something I have done on social media for the last 4 or 5 years. It's a good way to recap a game without writing a traditional game recap. And I want to see how it flows here on the Locked On Kings podcast. Also, we're going to dive into a potential fake trade. Everyone loves a good fake trade, but how about one with a little bit of question mark to it? Would the Kings actually go after Ja Morant? And lastly, or first, let's talk about this Zach LaVine situation. Zach LaVine tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers came off the bench for the Sacramento Kings. Of course, this is a player that is owed a tremendous amount of money. The Kings owe Zach LaVine $47 million this year, another $49 million next year. He does not seem like a player who wants to be in Sacramento at all. And that's to be expected. You know, when things go rough, when you're a team that's, you know, on the wrong side of an 8-game losing streak or a 7-game losing streak or a 5-game losing streak, whatever game losing streak, the Kings have had them all this season. And Zach LaVine clearly is not happy with his role in Sacramento. He'd like the ball in his hands more. He'd like to be the primary. He'd like to be a guy that gets to go out and score 27 points every game. That's just not been in the cards for him this year in Sacramento. And so to watch him come off the bench tonight was really interesting. Of course, he missed the last 2 games with a lower back issue. Now, whether that played a huge role in why he came off the bench or not, I'm not sure. The Kings are in Philadelphia right now and making their way to Boston for a game tomorrow. But I'm going to guess that because Doug Christie has done this in the past, when Zach LaVine missed 9 games earlier in the season with an ankle injury, he definitely came off the bench for a game, and Doug Christie just kind of wrote it off as like, hey, he's coming off an injury. Now, this is a low back issue that, you know, again, came up out of nowhere. It was only a 2-game absence, so it doesn't make a ton of sense to actually bring him off the bench unless that's going to be something that happens moving forward. Now, we're just a few days away from the trade deadline. Trade deadline is a week from Thursday, tonight when I'm recording this podcast, but realistically, we're like counting down the hours. There's going to be movement. We all expect Keon Ellis to be moved between now and, I don't know, between now and February 5th when the trade deadline hits. So there's actually lots of potential here for that move to happen. But can the Kings get involved in something else? And we're going to dive into whether Zach LaVine is a long-term fixture for this team and if they can move him for a guy like Ja Morant in the next segment. But for today, for this moment, let's dive deeper into what exactly happened here. LaVine started off the game horrible. He started 1 of 8 from the field when he did come in. He hit a shot early, and it looked like he might have one of those games where he hits every single shot. And then it just totally went awry. And so starts the game of 1 of 8 from the field. He finishes with 17 points on 5 of 16 shooting. Kings, of course, lost by 2 points in the final seconds to Philadelphia. A tough loss, but it wasn't a great game for LaVine. It also wasn't the worst game I've seen from him. And to be honest with you, I don't know like where to kind of place this guy. He is a tremendously gifted basketball player, but he also has an on and off switch. And sometimes you're just sitting there waiting for him to turn on the jets and start, you know, like going off on teams, scoring at will, because he has that capability, but he doesn't. and you're left always wanting more with a guy like Zach, which is really unfortunate. I've said this before in other places, but he really reminds me of Rudy Gay. Covered Rudy Gay here in Sacramento for a long time. Of course, he played for the Toronto Raptors, Memphis Grizzlies. Late in his career, played all over the place. I think Utah and a couple other teams. But Rudy Gay is just a tremendous athlete and a tremendous basketball player who you always felt like could probably score another 5 or 6 points in every single game he played. And it just wasn't in him to go out there and go get it. And that kind of feels like it is the same thing with Zach LaVine. And so when you see Neat Clifford, when the starting lineup comes out and rookie Neat Clifford is starting in LaVine's spot, of course, he's played the last 2 games starting while LaVine has been out. That's a decision Doug Christie is making. He's trying to push a young player to get more experience and to have more responsibilities and everything. Neat Clifford didn't have a particularly good game. He scored 2 points, grabbed 6 rebounds, had 2 assists in 27 minutes. He's got to be better in these situations. You know, the NBA is about getting opportunity and then taking advantage of that opportunity. And so for me, I do not think that what we saw from Neat Clifford tonight was taking advantage of a really, really good opportunity to go out there and put your best foot forward against another rookie and VJ Edgecombe. I thought Edgecombe was really good defensively. I don't think he had a huge night offensively. This game was certainly all about the duo of Joel Embiid and Maxey, who tore the Kings up, scored 77 points between the two of them. They just couldn't stop them. But I understand why they would start Neat Clifford. Neat Clifford is probably the future for the Sacramento Kings at the shooting guard spot, whether it's, the second half of this season and they ask Zach LaVine to take a reduced role, or for next season. It's one of the reasons why you're probably going to see Keon Ellis traded in the next 6 days, 7 days before the NBA trade deadline, because the Kings really do believe that this is a player that they can build around. He's got all kinds of offensive game. He figured out how to get to the free throw line in his last year at Colorado State. We're talking about a 5th-year senior that really took some huge strides, but, a really good passer, a really good rebounder, a strong defender, long defender. At 6'5", he can guard the 1, the 2, and the 3. And so I do see a point where, this thing may get handed over to Clifford, whether LaVine is on the roster between now and next Thursday or not. But for tonight, this was a bit odd. It was a bit odd because LaVine's only been out 2 games, and you figure that he could have stepped right in and probably helped the team off the jump. I think, again, LaVine adjusted. He did the best he could with the situation because this is awkward for him. He has been a starter in the league for years and years at this point. There was a point early in his career where he came off the bench, but at this point, you would expect every game that Zach LaVine is healthy for him to be a starter, and that just wasn't the case. I do like that Doug Christie's doing this, and it doesn't matter at this point if he makes $47 million or if he makes $100 million or if he makes $3 million. The fact is the Sacramento Kings aren't a good basketball team, and they need to try different things, and they need to bring along younger players. And if there comes a point where Zach LaVine is back in the starting lineup, whether that's tomorrow night or whether that's, next week or not at all, you got to do what's best for the team at this point. And what's best for the team is probably bringing along a young player. All right, when we step aside, we're going to step aside. When we come back, I'm going to jump into this idea of if Zach LaVine could be moved and whether he could be moved for a big, big swing by the Sacramento Kings for a player like Ja Morant. So it's complicated. I'm not sure that it's going to happen, but I'm here for a fake trade that, to be honest with you, isn't all that difficult to string together. Back in just a sec. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that's the part that always hasn't been so simple. That's why Gametime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. Pull up the Gametime app, pick a upcoming NBA game, and look for tickets. Lock in tickets within minutes. You love seeing the all-in price up front. no surprise fees at checkout, and being able to see the view from the seat before buying, makes the decision easy. I'm someone who has been at every single Sacramento Kings game except for 3 for the last 16 years. I love where I sit, but if I do buy seats for my family, I go to Gametime. You can look at the seats, you can pick and choose where you want to go, and you can actually look and see the view from there when you're buying. So really cool option here. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today. And reminder, it's gametime.co, not .com. And we're back. Sacramento Kings are careening towards the NBA trade deadline. And they, from what I know, like the latest intel that I've heard is that the Kings are a focal point of many, many, many different deals. It's very possible that they'll strike out with plenty of these deals and they'll have to go into this offseason with a roster that needs revamping. It's also very possible that they start clearing out this roster. Scott Perry, when he took over the New York Knicks, was able to flip almost the entire roster within 12 months. And it's something that realistically has to happen here in Sacramento. And it brings me to this potential. It's a fake trade. We'll just call it a fake trade now. I'm not reporting anything. There are plenty of times where I will report things, whether it's here or on social media. But for today, I do think that this is something that people should be looking at. Ja Morant is an unbelievable talent, and he has been an unbelievable talent and a very high level player in the NBA for a long time. But it does appear like his days in Memphis are coming to a close. And the Grizzlies, from everything I know, have been shopping him heavily and looking for a taker for his contract. He has not played a ton of games this season for the team. There's also, you can go back and listen to Draymond Green podcast where he's talking about him and Steph were discussing on the court how they didn't think that they were playing against Ja Morant. They were playing against something that wasn't Ja Morant, just looked like him. And he wasn't playing as hard as he could, and he just wasn't the same player. I think this is one of those players that needs a fresh start. And I don't know that the Sacramento Kings should be the place that he gets a fresh start, just because it's not just the fact that this is a player who has had tons of injuries. It's because he's a player who's had a ton of injuries, who's owed 2 more years after this year. So if we're looking at his contract, Jaws owed 39 million this year, 42 million next year, 44.9 during the 2027 season. And so he's owed a lot of money. This is not a low risk, high reward situation. It's a high risk, higher reward situation. And I want to make sure that I make that clear. I do not believe that this is one of those things that you just gamble on willy nilly and say, hey, I hope this works. Because, Ja is a player that the off court stuff, if it starts to come up again, again, he was suspended for brandishing firearms multiple times on social media. There seems to be this little bit of like needing to grow up and needing to figure things out, and whether the Kings are a franchise that can actually support a player like him is a very good question. I've known Dunn Christie for a long time. I think he can get through to a player. I think he can reach in and like really put an arm around somebody and figure something out and help somebody figure out how to maybe grow up a little bit. I also think Scott Perry has got this franchise on a totally different path. He's put in a bunch of rules in place. But when I listen to Scott Perry and his 6 pillars, Ja Morant doesn't really fit those 6 pillars. And Ja Morant would have to do a lot to figure out how to fit into the King system, how to be a better professional moving forward. And that, again, it would be a high risk situation for the Kings. So look, the Kings could figure out a way to make a deal here. Again, I think a lot of teams have fallen out any teams that were interested, especially like if you look at sort of the betting odds for where Ja Morant might make his next home, we're looking at teams like Toronto that may or may not be focused on something different, like the Domantas Sabonis sweepstakes, but Miami, who is clearly intrigued by Giannis Antetokounmpo and probably is not making any move right now for a player like Ja Morant. You're talking about Minnesota, who all of a sudden has been thrust into the Giannis Antetokounmpo sort of trade rumors as well. So if I'm the Kings and I'm looking at this situation where number one, I'm bringing Zach LaVine off the bench. Zach LaVine is owed 47 million this year, 49 million next year. The money is close enough that they could work out a deal pretty easily. And so that's something that I would consider. If you can move Zach LaVine and his 2 years with this year and next year for, this year and 2 more years of Ja Morant, I have to be honest with you. It's a gamble that I think I would take if I'm the Sacramento Kings. Zach will be 31 in March. Ja Morant won't be 27 until August. So next season he'll play as his 27th and 28-year-old season is what you'd be looking at. If he was on his best behavior and things worked out and he stayed healthy and he became the player that was dominant and had his team as the number 2 seed in the Western Conference a couple of years ago, who was averaging 27 points a game and who brought so much energy and fire and, again, is a complete fan favorite in Memphis, then I'm taking that risk, especially if it's, almost a straight swap, or let's say the Kings throw in a lottery protected first round pick down the road. I'm in, because I do think that there's a way to reset this roster around Keegan Murray, around a guy like Ja Morant. Both of them are, 26, 27. You're looking at sort of resetting your age arc of the team. And then, hey, go out and figure out a way to move Domantas Sabonis for RJ Barrett and have him be the third, another 25-year-old that you're throwing in the mix here. And so you could really start to see something different forming. And like, again, I don't know if this is going to happen, but I certainly at the final stretch here, I did reach out to the Kings a couple of weeks ago about this exact thing because John Morant was there were rumors of John Morant possibly in Sacramento, and the answer I got was not at this time, dot, dot, dot. And those dot, dot, dots meant actually a lot to me. It meant that, hey, look, we're going to consider things. Maybe it's not the perfect match today, but once we cycle through some of the other trades and the other options that we have, we might circle back to this, especially if the value, if the trade cost is extremely low. So I think it's something to look out for. Again, like we're hearing all kinds of buzz at the Keon Ellis thing. I would say is imminent at this time, but I don't want to fully say that. Like it's not like there's a deal in place that is just going to go through at any moment. But I also think that it could happen that way. The Keon Ellis situation will be clarified by February 5th. I do not think he will be on the Sacramento Kings roster. I think they will move forward, whether it's trading him for a pick or him going as part of some much bigger deal. But look, if it takes you, again, Zach LaVine and Keon Ellis to get Ja Morant, uh, you have to try something if you're the Sacramento Kings. Getting a potential superstar at age 26 and having enough time to rehab him and sort of bring him back into the fold here over the final 25, 30 games of the season. And I think there are worse ideas out there. So, all right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to dive into 6 quick thoughts, something new, something different, something I haven't tried here on Locked On Kings. But we'll be back in just a minute. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding the underdog, or building one of the last same game parlay. This is This is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. If you're a new customer, just bet $5 and get 200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. The last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit fanduel.com to get started. All right. We're going to try something new. I don't know how this is going to work, but if you follow me on social media at James_Ham, HAMNBA, like the National Basketball Association on Twitter, or if you follow me on Blue Sky, you know that I do something called 6 Quick Thoughts. A long time ago, I wrote game recaps for NBA.com. I wrote game recaps for Cowbell Kingdom. I wrote game recaps for NBC Sports, Bay Area / California. And to be honest with you, game recaps are like a thing of the past. So many people have watched the game and already know what's happening, and they're just, archaic. And so I do something different. I do 6 quick thoughts. I post them to social media after every game, and I basically am going to go through these and kind of discuss what I saw from the game. And so my first quick thought from tonight's Sacramento Kings loss to the Philadelphia 76ers, a 2-point loss, super close. First thing up we got is showcase. Whether the Kings are trying to move DeMar DeRozan or not, the veteran is loudly showing teams around the league that he can be an elite gun for hire. To be honest with you, DeMar DeRozan has just been such a pro's pro. And watching him go into a game against Philly and put up 25 points on 9 of 15 shooting, he added 8 assists. He grabbed 4 boards. Like, look, this dude's a pro's pro. And there are so many teams in the NBA today that could use somebody who is just a bucket. I mean, he's gonna walk in and average 20 points a night or get you 19 or 20 almost every single night. He's extremely consistent. He's not a great 3-point shooter. I think we've all known that throughout his career. But this is a guy who is, moved up the all-time scoring list. He's, I think, number 24 all-time. And he's climbing. He's a absolutely incredible player. And for teams that are looking for added scoring at this point, he's someone that they should probably be kicking the tires on. So shout out to DeMar DeRozan for going out there and realistically looking like he's showcasing himself. At age 36, he knows his basketball lifespan, his shelf life is running low. He'd like to go play for a winner. He hasn't demanded a trade or become an issue in Sacramento, but it's certainly something that if the Kings could find him a home between now and Thursday, they probably would. And looking at his stat line from tonight and his stat line from the game in New York the other night where he scored 34 points, like, look, this guy still has it, and he's still fully engaged, and he's been a great teammate, and he's been a really good leader for this team, even during a tough season. So definitely something to watch here in the next couple of days. Let's get to number 2, Dennis Menace. With Russell Westbrook sidelined with a sore foot, Dennis Schroeder jumped back into the starting lineup. He was excellent. Dennis Schroeder is hit and miss. For me, he's so streaky as a shooter. From one game to the next, you really don't know what you're getting. But he was good tonight. So 14 of his 27 points came in the first half. He had 4 rebounds. He had 2 assists. Overall, I just thought, hey, look, again, he's another player that between now and Thursday, there could be teams that are calling. Dennis Schroeder's played for 10 NBA teams, including, I think it's 6 in the last 2.5 seasons. I would not be just blown away if Dennis Schroeder was traded to a team looking for point guard depth going into the playoffs. He's owed $14 million this year, 14.5 yet next year. He has a 3rd-year option, but it's only guaranteed for $4 million. So a team could, step away from the final year of Dennis Schroeder. And there are teams out there right now, Houston and Minnesota, that are looking for backup point guard depth. Even the New York Knicks at one point were very interested by the idea of adding Dennis Schroeder during the offseason, and it even popped up again early in the season. So something to keep an eye on. off the bench. That's number 3. After missing 2 straight games with a low back issue, Zach LaVine played with the second unit. Couldn't buy a bucket early. He bounced back, scored 17 points on 5 of 16 shooting. He did come up big late. He had a big shot. He also missed a big shot that probably could have changed the direction of this game. But I did think he was very good. Number 4, since we already talked about Zach LaVine, we'll skip over and just go straight to number 4. Overpowered. Domantas Sabonis doesn't get pushed around very often. That's exactly what happened tonight. He got absolutely abused by Joel Embiid. For that matter, everybody on the Kings roster got abused by Joel Embiid. Dylan Cardwell could barely stay on the court. Max Reynaud couldn't stand in front of him, just got pushed around. Same with Precious Achiuwa. It wasn't, there's nothing they could do to stop him. But you expect a little bit more from Sabonis. He had 14 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. I know he's still coming back from a knee injury. He's had some good games, some marginal games, but you got to start expecting a little bit more when your player makes $42 million. Whether again Domas will be here by next Thursday or not, that's a good question. Toronto is very interested in him. I think there are a couple other teams that are also interested. There was talk about a potential fit with the Atlanta Hawks a couple of weeks ago. Whether that's something that happens or not, I'm not sure. But again, if he's going to be a Sacramento King, he's going to start. When you go up against a big dog like Joel Embiid, you got to give some resistance. And Embiid scored 37 points. Maxey scored 40 and just kept going right at the heart of the Kings defense. And that was tough. So let's get to number 5. Number 5, 6 quick thoughts, is found money. The Sacramento Kings signed Precious Achiuwa after the season began, and he's worked his way into the starting lineup. He started a ton of games for the Kings this year. And I'm so impressed with Precious. The fact that he was available still doesn't make any sense to me. I think he's a player that should be on an NBA roster. He should be in an NBA rotation. Tonight he didn't have a great offensive night, but he had 8 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 assists. The 13 rebounds is something that, again, he's growing. He's getting better as a rebounder. He's 26 years old. I still think that there is time for him to become something bigger and better than he is today. But for right now, the Kings are using him in the same way they used Keegan Murray. They're allowing him to defend 1 through 5. And if you look at the Knicks game, Precious was out there, guarding Brunson for a good portion of the game, and he did a solid job. And then you come back the next night and, whether it's Maxey or he's trying to slow down Embiid, or he's trying to slow down Paul George. That was something. Look, I don't know if Precious can legitimately guard 1 through 5 on every single night in the NBA, but there are nights where he can. And the versatility, the defensive versatility, the rebounding, just super impressive. And again, I'm not quite sure why he was out of the league, especially for as young as he is. So I think the Kings would like to keep him around. And I know that they would like to keep him around. They like to, have him be here after this season. And I would not be surprised if he gets a 2 or 3 year contract to stick around in Sacramento as sort of a replacement for what they lost when Trey Lyles wasn't brought back this season. Okay, lastly, 6 quick thoughts. Tough lessons. The Sixers present all kinds of matchup issues, and they really abuse the Kings in a lot of different areas. Dylan Cardwell nearly fouled out in 14 minutes. Max Reynaud, I think he had a better game than he has over the last couple. He finished with 7 rebounds and 7 points. Boy, I botched that. 7 points and 8 rebounds. And Neat Clifford shot 1 of 7 from the field, and did not play all that well at all. This is the life of a rookie, man. Everything is coming at these guys so fast, and they're trying to adjust. They're trying to get better. But this is the first 6-game road trip for this group this season, and for these young guys, and you can see it. And this is a horrible road team, an absolutely horrible road team. I think they have 3 wins on the season on the road. So just not playing well at all on the road. They're not playing well at all overall. They're mired in another losing streak, but you got to be better. And for rookies, you got to expect games like this where it's hit and miss. All right. We're going to wrap this thing up. Again, if you're watching here and you don't mind, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. That's huge. That way, if you set alerts, you get alerted every single time we go live with the show. Big stuff here. We're going to be doing this nonstop every single day, especially with the NBA trade deadline just a couple of, just a week away, a little less than a week away. So if you never miss an episode, it's time to make it official. Join the Locked On Everydayer Club and get ad-free audio, access to our members-only Discord, and more, all built for our most loyal fans. Click here, click in the description to or go to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer club, or you can go to lockedonkings.supercast.com to join the fun. That's going to do it for this episode. We'll see you very soon.